you can have the dream and still be a present father and still be a devoted husband and still be a man of God. Like you can have all these, you can have this multifaceted life.
And your job is to make sure your family knows how important that creative outlet is to you. Somebody would spit on stage and it was like, wow, it was so heartfelt. And then you go see them at the hotel later and they're acting like completely, oh, that's a show. You're using the churches because churches pay more consistently than clubs. We've been together 27 years, but there was a 1 year gap in the middle there, because we got divorced. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Marriage kills bands.
I can see the enemy approaching the battleground. Hear the drums pound like a thunder sound loud. I gather up my crowd to prepare them for what's coming. We've been summoned.
What's going on? Welcome to Alpha Dad Consulting, a show where we focus on helping dads become better family leaders. I am your host, G. Vidal, and today we're going to be diving into one aspect of family leadership that I believe gets kind of ignored by a lot of men, which is creativity. And before, I know you guys are probably thinking, like, before you start saying, like, oh, gee, I'm not creative, man. Like, I don't create stuff. I'm not a creative guy. We'll see. Just stick around for the episode because today I have a very, very special guest, man, that I wanted to bring on to sort of unpack this. And he is a talented rap artist / musician that's based out of Dallas, Texas. And he's been doing music for nearly 30 years. And now he has 5 studio albums and dozens of dozens of singles, released throughout that time as well. And he's not only doing that on his solo side, man, but he is part of one of the most talented, one of the most influential groups, in my opinion, hip hop groups that have ever graced the stage, Deep Space 5. And on top of all of that, he's not only doing that on the artist side, man, but he is also a devoted father and husband who's been married for 27 years now. So, he's got some marriage tips to share with us today. And I want to welcome to the show, Mr. Gary Watson, aka Sivion. What's going on, brother?
What's up, man? How you doing, man? It's good to hang out with you today, bro.
Yeah, bro. It's going to be a good one, man. So
I'm excited.
Dude, me too, man. And so I'm going to set the stage here, the little foundation here for real quick. So to give you guys a little story, a little background, I'm 14 years old. We just got done with a youth service, right? That I was a part of, a church I was a part of. And one of my friends, longtime friends, he gets called and he's like, hey man, you want to go to a underground Christian hip hop concert? Like, what? Yeah, Christian underground hip hop concert. You want to go? It's downtown LA. It's like deep hood downtown LA. And yeah, you want to go? It's like $10 to get in. You got money. So I go, I tag along. It's first concert ever, like ever. So, and we're paying the entrance fee. They're checking us, they're making sure we ain't got no weapons before we go in there.
Patting you down.
Patting us down, man. And then I walk in, it's a dark room. It's a small room. Everybody's in there packed like sardines going like this, right? There's no chairs. There's only like a handful of chairs along the sides of the walls and stuff. There's a stage that's about a foot high off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And that night I get to see these amazing, talented artists, Tunnel Rats.
Wow.
Percussions.
Oh, dope.
Ill Harmonics, right? Pigeon John is there. Man, I think even Red Cloud was there too.
Oh, yeah.
And there might have been some other ones, man. And then after all the performances, they do freestyle rap battles at the end. And I'm talking like real rap battles, right, guys? So like this is not like the acapella stuff that you see nowadays, right?
Yeah,
no beat. Like back then it was it's like 8 Mile style, 45 second, beat, 16 bars, you got to get it, right?
Yeah.
And man, that night just changed my life. Like it changed the course of all of our life, all the guys that were there.
Oh, wow.
I go home, man, that same week I write my first rap. And then we still communicate, those guys, and we end up starting a group called Methodical Elements. And for the next 10 years, we start performing, man. We do performances all over Southern California. We formed this really awesome live band where it's two of
Oh,
us
wow.
emceeing at the front. We got a drummer, we got two guitarists, a bass player, a keyboard, a violin. Like we got a full on like the Roots, like
Violin
ensemble. Dude, and it was awesome, man. It was
y'all weren't playing.
we weren't playing, and it was fun, man. It was some of the best lessons, some of the best life lessons I've ever gotten through that 10-year span. And throughout that span, right, I'm getting, my boy's handing me Marzil. He's handing me Deep Space 5. He's handing me Ill Trip, Freddie Bruno, like all these different underground Christian hip hop artists. I'm getting exposed to all of you guys. So this is full circle for me, bro. Like this right here is this is a special episode for me because it's full circle. Like you guys, I don't know how, I mean, you probably realize this, but you guys have impacted so many lives, man, with the good work that you've put out there. And you changed mine. You changed mine and my boys, man. So I will forever be grateful for that. So I just want you to know that, man.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
Absolutely, brother. So going in, right, 10 years, the group starts separating, right? Everybody kind of goes their own separate ways, different goals.
10 years is a long run.
It's a long
That's
run.
a long run, especially with a band.
Yeah, man. So it dwindles down to just being three of us. We're just emceeing. We got tracks, and that's how we're doing it. And then two of us end up getting married, right? Like we split. We end up getting married. We start our families. And then after that, just it dies, right? Like we break the group up. The dream kind of dies of us. We only recorded one EP, physical copy, because we leased the beats, so we could only do 1,000 copies, and that was it. Like that's the only thing we ever. It was before iTunes, guys. So, and so yeah, man, that all happens, and I enter into this phase of like, now I'm career focused. Now I got to be a family man, and I got to put this childish thing. That's what I was thinking. These childish things away, and I got to be this mature man, right? And be this dude. And I think that in and of itself, in that I lost my identity. I lost a sense of purpose. I lost this very special part of me that honestly was a big attraction point for my wife, right? Because she saw me on my purpose. She saw me this ambitious, this driven guy. And then when I stopped doing music, I stopped doing these things, I lost all that. And I just kind of settled into this very complacent, comfortable life. And I had no drive anymore. And 2 years into our marriage, we're almost ending in divorce.
Oh, wow.
And I don't pin the blame on this, but I think this had to do with that lost sense of purpose, right?
And
certainly. Yeah, man. So we get to that point. And thankfully we come out of that, and we don't have to get into the whole story.
God, man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Yeah, we come out of that. I mean, we're about to be 14 years. We got 3 kids. We're amazing. Awesome. I'm madly in love, man. And but we went through a lot of that, and it was a lot of that rediscovery of that creative outlet. And it wasn't until I became a dad that I see my kids. We got 3 of them, 6, 3, and 1. All 3 of them musically inclined. All 3 of them, they listen to my old music. They listen to you guys' stuff. They listen to, they know the words, and they're like, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. I'm like, man, I can't be the dude with the talent that digs up the hole and just, I gotta dig it back up. I gotta multiply. I gotta do this thing. So with all that said, and sorry for the long rant there. With all that said, man, 30 years. You've been going at it, and you haven't stopped. You don't stop. You don't, and I don't see you as a guy that's planning on stopping.
Nah, man.
Yeah, exactly, bro. So what I want to know is why, man? Like how has that been the case for you? How have you kept that drive and not let that, and not push that to the side, no matter what? Because no matter what trials and hardships have come around you, creative, being music and being a creative and creativity in and of itself, you've never dropped that. And I just like to get your take on that, bro.
So first off, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Marriage kills bands. I'm just kidding. We're not gonna put that on the wives, but for whatever reason, like when you have a band, you have a group, and the first person that gets married, then all of a sudden the group goes into turmoil. It's because of what you mentioned, right? It's your life changes, and you're trying to figure out where to balance creativity into a new responsibility, right? You're no longer, like I always thought, I got married at a young age too. And, I kept with my music because in me, like, it's like, there's a fire in there that just like, I can't see myself ever stopping creating in some way, shape or form. I feel like, we were created by a creator who created us in his image, and we're created to create. So at the end of the day, I'm gonna be creating something, but but you got to figure out that balance, because you have a new responsibility. It's not no longer just, G out here doing his thing. It's like, G's gotta look out for, Mrs. Vidal, you know what I'm saying? And, and I gotta look out for Mrs. Watson and our kids. And it's just a different, shift in priorities. Right. And so for me, it's one of those things where, I mean, honestly, for me, it's a little different, because I think there might have been a part of my creativity that drew my wife to me a little bit, but probably not. She wasn't like a huge like rap fan or anything. She's like you talk about like opposites attract. That's me and my wife, and because of that, I think we have really good balance, right? We balance each other. My strengths are her weaknesses, her strengths are my weaknesses, and but it's that balance, right? Everything changes, and I used to always tell her, like, when I look back at my career, and I'm like, gosh, if I didn't get married, maybe my career would be at a different place, because without having to worry about somebody else, some kids and a wife and putting food on the table, like I would sleep in a car to tour the world, to do raps, what I'm saying? Like I would do that, but I wouldn't put my family through that. I'm not going to do that to them. And so, since I got married, fairly young, that was out the door, whereas I have friends that never got married and they did that. And of course, their careers are further along. They got fans in Europe because they were able to do shows and sleep in cars, like just to get their name out there. So, I mean, it's a balance, but I think ultimately, when you have a creative outlet, it's like when, what's the big buzzword nowadays is like mental health, right? That's when we were growing up, nobody was talking about mental health, right? It's like, suck it up, walk it off, just figure it out, quit being a baby.
Especially,
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Grow a pair and figure it out. Whatever.
That's exactly it, man. That's exactly it.
But honestly, like, there's now, I think our society probably takes mental health a lot further than it probably needs to go. I think there's validity to mental health issues, but I think sometimes we pacify them instead of helping people get beyond, their hurt and bondage and the things that are causing mental health issues. So, I mean, we could talk about that all day too, but I think, for me, with my mental health, it's like, finding stress relief, like I work in corporate America, because, whatever, I got a family to provide for. And it's like my release from dealing with, that stuff, even though I love my job, but, and I'm very blessed, and, God gave me something really awesome to steward. But at the same time, it's like I'm working for somebody else, driving their agendas. And then on the weekends, when I'm doing music or whatever, then it's like, I'm creating something with my strategies and my thoughts and my ideas and the way I want to do it, and my vision for it, versus somebody, carrying out somebody else's vision for their company. Right. So I consider it like my own little company, so as I get to run it, I'm the CEO of Sivion and, whatever. And so all my records, my music, I get to create those in the way I want to. And, if I want feedback from other people, I'll get it. I have obviously with my brotherhood of Deep Space Five, I got a ton of really talented cats that I can bounce stuff off of and get, insights and input. But at the end of the day, it's on me. God put a specific style of creativity in me. And, you can overdo even the feedback thing, right? Because, I think that's what's potentially wrong with part of the music industry. A big part of the music industry is that everybody's trying to chase whatever's hot. And so, you get signed because somebody saw an innate talent in you. And then, you get in there, you do maybe one album that's all you, and it's like, yeah, it was awesome. And then they're like, yeah, but we could make so much more money if you start doing this kind of music or this kind of music. And it's like, and then you start to lose your own kind of creativity. And that's a big thing for me is like, you know, yeah, I want input like when I'm stuck. Like if I can't seem to get an idea moving forward, that I'm gonna get some eyes and ears on it. But you know, if I don't have that problem and stuff is flowing, then I'm like, I'll show it to you when I'm done. You know, I don't need your input around the way. Let me get this whole idea out.
Yeah.
And then see what, you know, people think or whatever. And if you don't like it, cool. It's not for everybody because, you know, it's what God put in me for the people he wants me to reach with this music or whatever. So
yeah, exactly, man. No, I love that.
I don't even know if I answered your question, but kind of went on a tangent.
No, I mean,
That's how I do.
yeah, no, it's all good, bro. I actually want to get into labels and independent in just a little bit. I want to, but what I want to ask you before we go there is, so who inspired you, man? Like, what was the catalyst for you to start like the whole, like, when was your first rap experience? Right?
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so you know, I've been a musician since like 7th grade. Maybe even before that, like just not officially like, you know, learned in school or whatever, but I started playing saxophone in 7th grade. And so I always had a love for jazz, John Coltrane, Miles Davis, Sonny Rollins, all that kind of good stuff. Yeah. My dad had a ridiculous record collection, which I inherited, which helped me later in my production with hip hop, but because I always had really cool stuff to sample from. But I grew up listening to, you know, soul and jazz and stuff. And so I've always been in a kind of a musical household. I mean, my mom sings, plays piano a little bit. My dad used to, you know, noodle around with a guitar growing up. He never got past like just strumming chords, but he just liked to sit in the living room and, you know, with his legs crossed, you know, strumming a guitar. And so we always had music around us. And I want to say, gosh, first raps. I mean, so I have a twin brother. We had a group called the Fat Cats. I mean, we probably wrote some raps in like 6th grade or something when we were living in Maryland. I think my first rap name was Freeze Master G.
That's right.
You know, so back in the 80s kind of thing. But that was just, you know, I liked Run DMC and all that kind of stuff. So you know, some of that stuff came out, but I didn't really write like my first serious rap until college. It was like I wasn't thinking about. I mean, I loved hip hop in high school, but I wasn't thinking about it. I was too focused on jazz. But then when I got to college, I think my brother Terry, aka Woo Golden Shoe from Fat Cats, he wrote a rap, and he actually. So I was in college at the University of Miami, and he was here in Texas at University of North Texas, and he was living in Denton, which is not too far from where I live now. Strangely, after full circle, I've gone all over the place, and now I'm like, you know, 5 minutes away from where we were when he was in college, and he met a DJ named DJ Span, and then that DJ had like a home recording studio, and so, you know, most of the rappers in that camp were gangster rappers. They were all like Bloods and Crips, and like they were on that side, and this was back when, you know, Snoop Dogg and, you know, G-Funk and all that was going on, and so Terry was like the backpacker, you know, like he was the UMC Tribe Called Quest, you know, boom bap rapper that was in the camp. And so he started writing raps and recording stuff, and he was sending me stuff that he was recording. I was like, that's pretty cool, you know. And so then I started writing raps, and then we recorded a few songs. And then we just, you know, started a group and started recording and doing shows. And so it was fun, you know, tapping into that creativity because, you know, like even back then I was so jazz influenced, you know, I would kind of write my raps almost like singy and like I was scatting, you know, to a hip hop beat or whatever. And I remember, you know, it worked, I think early on. Then when I changed camps, you know, later, and, you know, with a new producer, new, you know, engineer that I was working with, and he was just like, when are you going to start spitting your raps? You just kind of sing them. Raps are supposed to be spit. You got to spit them. So he was just like, kind of coached me into like just more like battle rap style, or just spit bars a different way than always being so melodic and and with it. So, but
yeah, and I hear it, bro. I hear it in some of like the old track. You can hear like when you get into that spit, and then you get to like the melodic. Like you can still see it. So
I dance back and forth.
No, but that's cool. But that's your unique. I think that's what gives you like a unique sound, right? Like when you hear, like when I would listen to Deep Space albums, I could always kind of tell like when it was you, when it was Crumb, Manchild and Syntax were the two that I sometimes on some songs they kind of sounded a little similar. But Manchild also has this very unique flow with the way he flows his words. Yeah, so it's this cool, diverse group, man. That listener, when it's listener.
Yeah,
you know when he's.
That's it.
But dude, yeah, it's awesome, man. So when did you? So you said you went into a new camp, right? You got to more of the spit style. And then, so when does you crossing paths with like Crumb and like Deep Space 5 and all, like, where does that come into play?
Yeah. Fat Cats, we were working with an engineer, kind of a DJ named Silent in Dallas. So we had kind of migrated away from like the Denton scene into the Dallas scene. And, we had, bumped into there was all these really dope groups in Dallas that we used to rock with. And there was a club out there called the Liquid Lounge in Deep Ellum. So every final Friday of every month, they would have a show called Final Fridays. And so we would go out there, every couple months we'd rock, but either whether we were rocking or not, we were there because that was the thing you did at the end of every month, because there wasn't a whole lot. There was, if a tour came through town, there was maybe other venues that were, you could get on as an opener or something like that. But there wasn't a whole lot of like really dope, on a cadence, regular hip hop nights back in the, mid to late 90s. So Final Friday, that was the thing. So everybody's at Final Friday. We were at Final Friday. I think Fat Cats was performing. My brother Terry had a friend from like, he used to work at 24 Hour Fitness or something. And he was in the fitness industry, and he had a friend that worked at one of the gyms, and he invited him to a show. And this guy, he knew Doug and Fred, so Crumb and Freddie Bruno. And so he invited them. He's like, hey, you got to come see these dudes, the Fat Cats, they're dope. And, they're kind of like Christian rap, but they're not like self-proclaimed Christian rappers, but like when you listen to they're Christians and they rap about really dope stuff from a Christian perspective, right? And so, so they show up, they see the show, they thought it was dope. There were some acts that went on later after us that we weren't really feeling. So, me and Terry stepped outside to just, take a break from the loud music, and Doug and Fred were out there. And the other dude, Talus, he was like, hey man, I want to introduce you to my friends, Freddie Bruno and Plato at the time. Right. And so, we were sitting there talking, and we were like, why are y'all outside? He's like, well, we don't like what's the music playing right now either. We're not feeling it. Yeah. And I think that was at a time when, in order to kind of keep the momentum of that monthly show, like the promoters were starting to kind of mix up the vibe a little bit and bring in like, some hip hop, which was part of their community because they were all like the backpacker, side, but then, the underground side, but then they would bring in some like some street rappers or main street. Some party hip hop, some thug raps, whatever, just because those people would bring like their whole freaking gang or whatever. So it'd be like the place would be packed every time. And plus, at hip hop shows, it was a younger crowd. So, the bar was always, not wanting to book hip hop shows because there wouldn't be enough people drinking, because it's all like 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds, whatever. But like when those other groups would come through, they would bring older people that would drink. And so they were always like, we make more money when you bring, the party raps. So we're outside talking. We end up doing some freestyling and stuff. Find out that, Doug makes beats and all this stuff. And from there, we just kind of hit it off and started kind of just collaborating a little bit. And at the time, I didn't even realize, I think they were both, I don't think Fred was signed yet, but, I think Doug was on Cosa Nostra or something. Okay. And he had just a single out right before El Harmonics. And I think it was right after they were on MTV, some show on MTV that got them some acclaim or whatever. Yeah. And they were telling us about Christian rap industry. And I'm like, Christian rap industry? Like, what is that? Yeah. They're like, yeah, it's like, you could rock at churches. And I'm like, rock at churches? Like, what is that? Like, that doesn't make any, like, I don't even know what I'm hearing. So that was my introduction to even knowing that there was a lane for the kind of music we were doing that would get we'd have more respect or just it better received, right? Because, we're talking about Jesus and they love Jesus, we love you. Like, oh, awesome. So that's kind of, so we started doing just like collaborations, right? Just we'd feature on a few songs here and there. And I remember like the Rhymes Monumental records, like it was like Fat Cats would just, or Sivion would just kind of sprinkle in as a collab feature. And I must have did like 100 features before I ever released like a actual record. It was like mad features. But that's how I got into Christian rap. It was just doing crazy amounts of features.
This is something that I like to point out too, because during that time, man, I remember this is what, like early 2000s, something like that, or right,
like late 90s, early.
Yeah. So I remember
99, 2000.
As I was getting into like the Christian hip hop, Christian rap, like just being introduced into it, right? I remember, man, because I had that same reaction you did when Doug told you, like, oh, this is Christian rap industry. It's like, what? Like, what is Christian rap?
For real?
Like, what is that? Yeah, and then
DC Talk?
Yes,
no, there's actual real rappers
DC
that
Talk,
could rap.
Toby Mac. But I remember the first like Christian rap album that I heard was T-Bone. Remember T-Bone? Yeah. It was like The Life of a Hoodlum or something like that with T-Bone. It was very like gangster rap, West Coast style, but good message, talented dude.
Real talented dude.
Yeah, real talented, man. And that was my first introduction. And then I saw some other dudes named Gospel Gangsters too. Like this is like the West Coast stuff. But little by little, right, I started getting this introduction into it, man. But I remember that there was always this rift between like secular, right, mainstream, because during that time it was like Eminem, 50 Cent, like all the club bangers and like Ice Cube, Dre, all that stuff, right? And there's this Christian side, Christian rap scene is like, no, we ain't doing that. Not rapping about that stuff. We're gonna rap about Jesus and all that. But then there's a mainstream Christian rap, which was like the Toby Mac, the DC Talk, like that very much a lot of it got labeled as like corny, right? Like very popish but like, and then you guys come in, man, and you guys bring this like authentic, like raw underground style to it that it's just like it's different, and I think a lot of you guys were like the pioneers of that genre, that kind of like you infiltrated it, right? And you just made this whole nother segment of it, man. And during that time, we would get a lot of flack for going to churches and performing hip hop because we weren't accepted in different churches. They were like they'd have like a lineup and it'd be like rock, hip hop group. It's like, and then rock, like the whole set, right?
Well, because rock is closer to worship
to the
style, like because they're used to seeing a band.
Yeah.
But they're not used to hearing as rap music.
Yeah, exactly, man.
You can kind of like get away with rock at a church, but like somebody starts rapping, that's like, what are they doing?
Yeah, man.
If you're just going to say words, you should just preach.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
they're thinking.
Yeah, that's exactly right, man. But you know what was cool, and I think, and I don't, tell me if you guys experienced this as well, man. But there was some venues we would go to where at first, they would kind of frown on us, and then after they saw us do our thing, and we gave them the experience, we'd get like pastors and like youth leaders and all that come up to us. Hey, man, like I was a little sketchy about you guys coming, but then when I saw what you guys did, like, man, you guys are pretty. Like, you guys made me like rap. And that right there, dude, that was like the most fulfilling, like, I
Yeah.
was like, oh, all right, cool. We did our job here, you know?
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
you guys get a lot of that? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it was, pastors would come up and they'd be like, yeah, the youth pastor or whatever, recommended that you do it. I was skeptical, but, I saw Jesus in you. Like
Okay.
like, I felt like what you were doing was, you know, Holy Spirit led. Like, so it was like, it's almost like, because I don't know if you remember, but there were some ministries back in the day that were
Mm.
like trying to like attack rap music in general,
Oh,
thinking
yeah.
it's of the devil, we're burning CDs, all the thing. And I can't remember the main one, but there was like a website, a whole lot, and they were going after
Wow.
Christian rap heavy. And so a lot of people just felt like, God can use a lot of things, but he can't use rap. Like, there's no way he's using rap. Y'all are evil, and it's like, then when they hear us and how authentically we present the gospel, or how authentically we present our Christ-centered perspective of our life through rap, then they're like, oh, that's different. That's not what I thought I was going to hear, and
Yeah.
and so I praise God for that, because it's, I mean, there was a lot of churches that were anti. There were some progressive churches that had done some stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, we know this, the kids love it,
Yeah.
it's good, and it's these all these artists love Jesus. But then there were some that, but then at the same time, during that time, I remember as I was coming up in that, doing shows at churches for the first time, I mean, there was the people I knew, I could see, like, you love Jesus, like, you love the Lord, you're out here spitting, for him. I love it, And then there was times where it was like somebody would spit on stage, and it was like, wow, that was so heartfelt. And then you go see them at the hotel later, and they're acting like completely. I mean, and I get it. Like, we're all human, and there's a balance, right? Because we're flawed, But some people were like, oh, that's a show. You're using the churches because the churches pay more consistently than clubs.
Yeah.
And so if you can, and you grew up in a church, or you went to Bible college, so you got all this scripture in your brain, but you don't really believe it, but this is like a job to you. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's like
clout, right? Yeah.
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 Well, it's like, like some pastors, like there's sometimes the job market's tough. And if you went to Bible school, and you went to, your parents sent you to theology, school, and you can't find a job anywhere else. And you're like, well, I mean, I know the Bible frontwards and back. I could get a job as a pastor, and then you're just over here just teaching a flock of, you're shepherding a flock, and you don't even have the Holy Spirit, and you don't care. Like, it's a job, and there's so many churches out there that are like that. And, those kind of, false prophet type things. But, when you see it in the music, and I mean, because, you and I, like, I mean, we're spitting from the heart. Like, the things we wrote ourselves.
Yep.
There's Christian groups out there where, there's ghostwriters, and I'm thinking to myself, I get songwriting, and then somebody else singing it, like, for a rock band or pop music. But rap is supposed to be you telling your story. Like, that's how it came up from the streets, is like, we're telling our story of what's going on in the hood and what's going on in the Bronx. We're like, the things we're dealing with, street life.
Yeah.
It's our story. Like, I'm not making, I mean, I might, little braggadocio, whatever, make some funny puns that, like, oh, I'm better than whatever, but for the most part, the storytelling is supposed to be about you and things you've seen firsthand, not somebody else writing a story for you to tell. Like, that's like, I might as well just be, storytelling, reading books, like, oh, I read to the kids and I read this story from somebody else. No, it's like, it's supposed to be you. So when I hear, especially in Christian rap, like, ghostwriting, really? I mean, I got Holy Ghost writing, but that's the best ghostwriter. But I don't know what this other ghostwriting is.
Yeah, man. I think about that with I have a hard time remembering other people's lyrics, like other songs, other song lyrics. But when I write my own, I can remember it because I'm involving the senses and I'm actually writing it out, and it's coming from me. And I used to think about that, like, man, I could never, like, even when I was in the group, I could never write somebody else's raps, right? Like, I probably could have, like, given the skill, but I could never do it authentically. I'm like, nah, this doesn't feel right, man. I don't want anybody writing mine. I don't want to write it for anybody else. Like, these are mine. Like,
your perspective. Me. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I don't want to give that to anybody else. Right. So, yeah, man, there's, and the other thing too, is I feel, one thing you brought up at the very beginning where you said, God is a creator. And I think about I heard this from a guy named Myron Golden. He said, the first thing that God ever told us about himself is that he's creative, right? Like, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, right? So like, that's the first thing he tells us about him is he's creative. And then he made us in his image. Like, yeah, man, you have creativity in you. Like, there's some part of you. It doesn't necessarily, we're talking about one segment of creativity, which is rap and hip hop. But man, you can create an experience for your children with the way you tell a story to them at night. Yeah. You can create an experience for your wife with the way that you approach and love her. You're creating all the time.
You can create an environment of love in your home. Bro. You know what I'm saying? There's all kinds of things you can create for sure.
Man. Yeah, dude, it goes deep, man. And I remember me personally, anytime that and you've done this, like, you enter that flow state of, like, you're just lost in the words, man. You're hearing the beat, you're lost in the words, you're writing, and then you see the end after the canvas has been painted, and you're like, whoa, this is dope. Like that. Yeah. I can't believe I did this. Like, this is awesome. It came out.
Yeah.
And I feel closer to God in those moments. I feel closer to my creator, and like, so yeah, there's something special about that, man. Something special about that.
I think it's funny too. Like, some people, like Freddie Bruno, for instance, like and I think even Crumb to a certain, they're both really good at, like, I'm gonna do a song about this, and they come up with the concept, and then they just start writing all the cool stuff they can think of that goes with that concept. And I mean, they'll have, like, the title of the song and everything before they even have a beat, or like, and I think even Syntax is good at that. Like, he could just come up with, we should have a song about this, and then we would do all this. And like, when we were doing Deep Space 5 records, like, he would come up with, like, half the names of the songs, and then we would start writing to the concept of what the name meant or whatever. But in my stuff, like, I just start writing. I hear the beat, I just start writing. And usually wherever I land my first verse, like, literally, like, the last line of the first verse gives me the idea for the hook. And then usually the hook bounces off of that. And then once I write the hook, then however I finish the hook springs into my next verse. And so it's just like I write it linearly, across, and then I come back and look at it wow, it's so crazy that the song started here and ended here, like, where God just kind of walked me through, and a lot of times, I'll start with a verse and a hook, and then I sit on it for, like, days, weeks, maybe months. Like, I'll just sit on that, and I'll start working on something else, and I'll see where the other songs go. And it's really interesting. And the only other, like, I think, weird thing I do with my creativity, especially when I know I'm working on a record, like, I'm going to do a whole album. Like, this isn't just me niddling around, see where this goes. Like, I know, like, I'll curate all the beats first.
Oh, okay.
Like I'll
Interesting.
just grab a bunch of beats from either one producer or multiple producers, and then I'll like align them how they flow together in a project. Like, oh, this one sounds like an intro. This one sounds like an outro. Ooh, the way this beat ends, it goes into this one really cool, and then this one goes into this one. Oh, and then this there's a lot of energy in this side, and I need to have like a moment where it kind of cools down a little bit, so these tracks fit right in that spot, and then I build it back up, and I'll almost have the whole, and I'll vibe on that
Yeah.
for like weeks of just like, yeah, I like where this record's going, and then I'll just start writing.
Wow.
And again, I'll do like a verse and a hook, sit on it, verse and a hook,
Yeah.
sit on it. And then sometimes that helps me. Like if I sit on it and I can't think of anything else, that's when I'm like, ooh, I need a feature. Because I need another verse, but I can't think of anything.
Okay.
Gee, I need a feature. Like I start reaching out to, the homies and figuring out who would be good on, oh, a girl would be good on this one, a female voice. Or, oh, I know, let me call Braille or whatever. And I'll just, whoever I feel like would fit it, then I start reaching out to those folks, and then it just, the rest is history from there.
Dude, that's awesome, man. Like that actually, so is that how you did Straight Shot, the album? Like did you have all the beats and then you did it exactly how you just described? That's crazy, man. That's cool.
Exactly.
That's really cool. Yeah, I didn't even think about that as being a way of grabbing all the beats, putting them together, and then just kind of listening to them flow without any lyrics, and just kind of that's a brilliant. I'm gonna try that and see on some of the stuff that I'm working on, man. But that's pretty cool, man. I like that.
Yeah, I did that on Straight Shot. I did that on Dark Side of the Cocoon.
Okay.
And I kind of did it. I did a little bit on Group Therapy too. Like I was starting to curate. It's funny that I was starting to curate beats for another record on Hip Hop is Music with Braille. So I did Spring of the Songbird, and I was gathering beats from all those same producers that I used.
Okay.
Like the R and Theory Has It and some of these folks to do another record with Braille. And then, his situation changed and he dissolved the label, and they started Humble Beast and moved a whole different directions. Then I had all these beats, and I was like, crap, I got all these beats, and they were all like a verse and a hook, and so then I was just like, what if I make this like a group type of album, and I just get a bunch of features to fill in the rest of these. And so I just started reaching out to all these people, and then by the end of it, there was like 40 different people on the record.
Cool, bro. Yeah.
And it's kind of the thing that brings me joy about that record. Like the thing that I feel like is such a blessing is when I finished it, especially considering like, how hard it is to get people to collaborate and turn in their verses and deliver their stuff, especially when they're all over the world, right? You have people from, different countries, time zones, whatever, and you're not a major artist with, a big budget. So, people are getting paid nominally if it at all for this, all like homie hookups and like, based off your relationship. Yeah, I'll do a verse for you, Siv. You're good people. Yeah. And it just, when I looked at the massive volume of people on that record, it just gave me this sense of like, wow, God, look at all these people you connected me with through all of my journeys, rapping at different states and doing shows and doing collaborations and doing all this stuff and being a good steward of every single relationship, to the point where when I reached out, they were all like, heck yeah, like versus, oh man, the last time I saw Sivion, he was whatever, and I'm not doing nothing for him. He's got to pay me, whatever. Like it was just so cool, like, that he did that, and to look at the sheer list. I remember when before we dropped that record, we just released the track list with the features on it, and everybody was like, what? All these people, the Tunnel Rats are on there, and all these people. I mean, and some of those people I had never ever done anything with, but
really?
but
because of your reputation and the
like just like me stewarding the relationships that I had, everybody that didn't know me were like, well, my homie and he says you're good people, then yeah, I'm down.
That's awesome.
Like getting the tunnel rats. I had never done anything with any of the tunnel rats. I knew some of them. I knew like a couple of them, but then those couple connected me with all the other ones, and then I got all the other ones. So it was just like, and that was a big moment for me because I always thought they were dope, but I was just like, man, I don't know any of those guys, but it would be cool to do something with them, and they were all down. And I was like, wow, look at God.
Yeah, dude, that's cool, man. Yeah, I remember. I used to go watch a lot of the Tunnel Rats because they were out in the West Coast, so it was easier to catch a show from them. I'll never forget a moment, man. We went up to I think it was they used to call them NOS events, NOS events out there, and Plato used to perform there a lot. But Tunnel Rats performed one night, and they did like an open mic. I got to do a spoken word up there, and then I did it like half English, half Spanish. So I had like a little mix up. And when I got off the stage, I remember Macho came up to me. He's like, "Hey, dude, like that was dope, And just that, like, that alone as a kid, as like a 16, 17-year-old kid, like, one of the dudes you look up to tells you like, dude, that was a dope rhyme, And I'm like, oh man, that was heartfelt, But it just reminded me of that right now when you said like you didn't know any of them, but you knew some of them, but you had never done any work with them. But dude, it's dope when you get that feeling of like, man, you've seen these guys and now you get to work with them to some capacity. And I love that, man. The reputation of a good man, right? Dude, it matters, man.
It's so, I remember, I tell my kids this all the time, like everything God does, he does through relationships. Almost. Yes. He can, if he wants to drop money out of a tree, he can, for sure. But typically he will bring somebody into your life to help cover your need or whatever. And so it's like so important to steward every relationship he gives you and leave it better than it was when it started. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you don't have to become their best friend, but just don't squander it. Like, whatever God wants you to get out of that relationship, do that, honor it, and then move on or whatever. And then you leave this trail of people who were positively impacted by you. And then when you bump into them again, or you need something in the future, they're like, heck yeah. Because, I remember the one time I met you and you bought me dinner, or man, you gave me so much love after I came off stage or whatever. Like, I was feeling self-conscious about something. You encouraged me, like whatever. And then it just comes back full circle, multifold. And, when I look back at my whole life, all the favor I've received from so many places, starting back in high school through college and beyond, it's, the only thing that I can think of is like, well, being one of God's children, you get like, he pours favor on you, but he increases that favor when you steward and relationships. And it's like, gosh, I remember when I got laid off in July from my job I'd been at for 18 years. And I went on LinkedIn and was like, hey, open for work. And like 300 responses to my LinkedIn post. And I was like, what? Who are all these people? Awesome. And there was all these people I had just like crossed paths with once or twice, people that I worked with in different departments that I don't even remember ever meeting them, but they were like, yeah, we met at this one conference and you were so nice. And, this is a good guy. You should hire him. And I was just like, overwhelmed by like joy and, God loving on me. Yeah. And I remember, and then we can move on to, the next topic, but I remember the night I got fired. Like, I didn't call my wife and kids to tell them on the way home from work that I had just got laid off. They eliminated my position. I waited till I got home. We had dinner. We were at the dinner table. And then I told them. And they thought I was joking. And I was like, no. I literally got laid off today. Something I thought it would never happen after being at a company almost 19 years. Yeah. And they were like, oh my gosh. They started to kind of freak out a little bit. And I was like, don't worry. God's got this. Watch, here's what's going to happen. It's the middle of July. We have a trip to Cancun already planned with family. We're just going to enjoy that. How cool is it that I get to enjoy that trip without worrying about what I got to return to at work or whatever? This is a blessing in disguise. And then at the end of July, when we're back, I'm going to change my status in LinkedIn, and I want you to watch what happens. And I told him, I was like, when, well, first off, like the next day, like they laid me off a day early than everybody else. They laid off like 200 people, but they had to lay me off a day early because my name came up in a meeting with mixed company, and there were some people that knew about it. They weren't supposed to know about it. So they fired me a day early. Jeez. So that I wouldn't hear about it from somebody else in the elevator or something or whatever. Yeah. And so I told them, I was like, tomorrow they're going to announce to my team that I'm not there. And what's going to happen is God's going to use that as an opportunity to pour a bunch of encouragement on me. That's what he does. Like they're going to hear I'm not there. They're all going to reach out. All my people that report to me, whatever, they're all going to be like, oh my God, Gary, we're going to miss you. They're stupid for hiring you, the whole thing. Right. Yeah. And then when I change my status, there's going to be another outpouring. And then God's going to find me favor, and he's going to bring me to an awesome job, and which he did. But it was just weird watching, like saying that at the dinner table and then watching that play out, knowing, and I've been on the planet 50 some odd years, I've seen God work. I know what he looks like. I've seen too much not to doubt him, right? Too much to doubt him. My faith is unwavering. I've seen too much. You can't tell me nothing because I've seen too much. And he did exactly what I knew he would do because he'd done it so many times in my life. And that's, to me, like as a father, as a husband, like I want my kids to remember, just like in the Bible, it says, remember when I took you across the Red Sea. Remember when I took you out of Egypt. Yeah. Remember when I fed you in the wilderness. Remember when I rained down manna. Like a lot of God's word is about remembering, like, yeah. If you're in a new season, new situation, but remember what I've done, because that's my character. If I took care of you then, I'm gonna take care of you here. And so like my life lesson to my kids constantly is like, acknowledge when you see him work, praise him and acknowledge him. And in that moment, like, I see you, God, I see what you're doing. And then remember that. So when you get in this next situation 5 years later and you're like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Remember what he did. But if you don't acknowledge it, you probably won't remember it. So acknowledge it so that it sticks into your brain that this was a God moment. And then you'll never forget, and you'll never be in despair, and you'll never get depressed, and you'll never get, all the things that people get that don't have hope. Yeah. I want you to always have hope in every situation, because you're going to go through some stuff. You're young. I'm telling you, once you get married and different things, you're going to go through some stuff, but God's in all of it. And you need to welcome him into all your stuff, like all your stuff, all of it, the minutia of all your stuff, welcome him in, because then you're submitting to him to help fix it, right? And you're submitting to his guidance and all that sort of stuff. And you remember that he's working. You can be on the lookout, looking around. What is he doing? Am I paying attention? Am I catching all this stuff? Because he's doing all these cool things around me. And if I don't pay attention, I might miss him. Don't miss him. It's the stuff that he's doing is too awesome to miss. Don't miss it. Yeah. So anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Bro, that's so powerful, bro. No, that's awesome, man. That's such a great leadership move in terms of the way you approached it too. Being at the waiting, sitting on it, right? Being at the family table and then letting them know, but saying it not in a defeatist victim mentality, way. You said it in a very like faith oriented way. Like, hey, yes, this kind of stuff, hope. But hey, man, this is going to be good. We're going to figure it out, and then you just trusting in God, man, that he's got you, Yeah. And dude, that's powerful, man. That takes, I think, a lot of experience, a lot of lessons learned throughout that. Right. One of where I want to take this, if you're cool with it, I want to lean in on the 27 years of marriage, man, that you have, because that's a big milestone. First off, so congrats on that. We're about to hit 14 years. So 27. I mean, we want to go 50. We want to go forever, bro. Yeah,
you're just a little over half where we're at. Yeah,
yeah, man. So huge milestone that most men dream of, but very few achieve, especially now, 50% divorce rate, all that, man. What's been the hardest season for you guys, you know, in your marriage, and how did you and your wife navigate through it? How have you guys, you know, just been able to stick it out, man, into this commitment? Because it's not easy, brother. It's not an easy thing.
It's
man.
not.
Yeah.
No, and I mean, and I'd be lying if I said our marriage was perfect, right? Because there's nothing perfect, you know, and marriages have problems, and the only answer to any problem is Jesus, right? You got like he's the answer to all the problems. So like for us, I mean, honestly speaking, I think I shared this with you. I mean, we've been together 27 years, but there was a 1 year gap in the middle there, you know, because we got divorced, and so I think after what was it, 2013, so that would be after about 15 years or so. We 17 years, I think we got divorced, and we were divorced for a year. And and my wife, she's an amazing human, and I love her to death. And I mean, from the day I met her, I've been thanking God, because I'm like, I don't know, I mean, you're a believer, you're beautiful, you're all these things. I don't know, like I just don't know how I would handle, like, if she wasn't a believer, or like other things. Like, God made it easy. I mean, she came with some difficult things, but she's amazing balance to me. And she came up in, she had a different lifestyle in her, upbringing than I did. I had both of my parents, nurtured, we grew up in the church, my dad's still a pastor, and all the things, my twin brothers, one of the pastors at his church. Like, I mean, I'm doing Christian rap, my older brothers, Christian, like all the things, so we just had like love and support and all the things growing up. She grew up, she never knew who her dad was, so she was like, her dad was in her life, but she didn't know he was her dad and all this stuff. And so she has all of this just, baggage and different things, hurt and resentment and all this kind of stuff. And, we had gotten to a point, being just fully transparent with you guys, being vulnerable, we got to a point where she started to see me more as like filling the void of a father than a husband. And so in her mind, she felt like she was falling out of love with me, and like, she was like, I don't see you like a husband anymore. And so, she, filed for divorce. And, and I just remember through the whole process, God telling me, let her go, let her go. I'll let her go. I'll bring her back. I'm doing something. Let her go. And I remember, my parents and everybody like, well, you should get a lawyer then. Like, if she's got a lawyer, you should have a lawyer. And I'm like, I'm not getting a lawyer. Like, I'm giving her what she's asking for. I'm letting her go, and she can take whatever of mine she wants, because I already know that the Lord is telling me that he's going to restore this. And so I let her go. And, that last year before the divorce was final was a really tough year. We ended up having to sell our house and, and move. And, we moved into these apartments, and, and I wanted to be near the kids. So like, we moved into the same apartment. She was across the street at one apartment, and I was on the other one.
Wow.
And bachelor padding it with like a mattress on the floor and the whole, like, I just, and God kept telling me, he's just have faith in me. Let me do what I'm doing. And I remember, we go to the, the courtroom, and, and she's like my best friend. Like, that part never changed, right? She just felt like, maybe you're not my husband material or whatever. Yeah. And so we're at the court about to get divorced, with the judge and final, and we're sitting in the pews, just kind of cutting up, and the lawyers are all looking at us, and they're just like, and we, we do the whole thing, and we walk out, and her lawyer's like, yeah, we all made bets that this isn't going to last very long, because y'all look like you love each other. I'm like,
you don't look like typical divorce.
Yeah, you don't look at typical, like, pissed off at each other, fighting for, trying to steal the house from one and whatever. And I was like, no. And so literally, like, probably 2 months later, like I remember my son coming back over to my apartment to say goodnight one night or something. He was just like, Mom, cries every night, and she misses you. And, and so I started going back to see her and just like, figure out what's going on. And God just started reworking it, and we just started courting from scratch. Like just, a year later, we got remarried. And the funny thing is, the date that we got divorced, the very next year, a year later, that same day was Good Friday. And so my dad, we had our, I was like, well, let's take this bad day back. Let's take it back and give it back to God. And so my dad, being a pastor, he married us in our living room. My son was the best man. My daughter was the maid of honor, and our dog was the ring bearer or whatever. And we got married in the living room, remarried, and we've been married, 11 years since then. So, 27 total. We had that 1 year off. But marriage is full of stuff. And I think once she realized that, all the good things that I brought to the marriage, or all the things that she felt like were sent from God, or, the balance of, the stability when her whole life growing up was unstable, and, and I provided stability and all those things that, she was like, that is God blessing me. And, I do see you as a husband and all the different things. So it was, it was a rough time, but
I can imagine, man.
But we made it through, and I'm no saint, I had my ways of making things difficult too, but through that process though, I really saw how special of a human she is, and just how broken she was from her upbringing, and God just like poured all kinds of like compassion and empathy out of me that I didn't even know I had. So,
well, and those are the moments, right? Like when you exhibit it, like when it actually comes out of you, when you're confronted with those moments. I always tell people all the time, man, like don't pray for patience, pray for strength, because you won't get a trial, or you're gonna get something. There's gonna be something that you're gonna get if you're praying for that, because you got to go through something to gain that degree of patience, that degree of empathy, that degree of long suffering, right? Because that's a rough time. I can get it, but how stronger is your marriage now?
Oh, much stronger. It's like there's we're battle tested, bro. Like there's no shaking this thing, and I think like I'm again, probably because I've been on this planet a long time, and I've seen a lot of things, but it's like, I'm starting to learn that, every trial, every test, every tribulation that you go through is an opportunity to really put your faith in action, and really, like, if you're about this, like, are you really about this? Or are you just reading about it and, living vicariously through your pastor? Like, if you're going through something and you don't believe the words that you're reading, that you're studying, and the word that you believe to be, the true gospel of God's word, like, if you don't believe his character and the things he says, then you'll act a fool during trials, right? And I'm like, there's no reason to like be angry or hate or whatever. Like, this is something that's happening because somebody's hurting. Like, what would Jesus do? Like, he would have empathy and compassion, and he would meet the need somehow. And, in that situation, God was leading me to meet the need. Like, the need was for her to have time alone with him, to reflect on what she has, what she didn't have, what she needed in her life, what she really thought she, because what she thought she needed and what she really needed were two different things. And she realized that, but she wouldn't have, if we had never gone through that, she probably would have never had enough time to herself with, alone time with God to really see it the way she needed to. When I look at it, it's like, I wouldn't change a thing. It's messy. it's all the things, but but gosh, look where what the end result was. And that's, like with the kids, like they saw the whole thing. And so, part of, as I'm telling them, remember the things that God does, remember what he did with your mom and I, like, remember the things you've seen these things. These aren't, you're not hearing stories from your friends. Like, you lived through this. So
they're
when you
miracles, bro, like they're literally miracles,
literal miracles.
Yeah.
When you see, like, when you get out on your own and you're, trying to find a spouse and you're married and you're going through trials, remember what you saw growing up.
Yeah.
Remember how your mom responded to this. Remember how your dad responded, how we worked through a really tough time and how we continue to work through those tough times. Like, remember that, because that's going to come in handy. All of us have tons of friends whose parents gave up and didn't even give up. Like, I have homies who are divorced. I mean, most of my homies are divorced too.
Yeah.
And I'm like the only one who reconciled their marriage, but when I see them, sometimes I'm like, I can tell they still love each other, whatever. But it's like, sometimes we're stubborn, and we just like, we still feel like, oh, well, I would maybe get back with that person if they change something. It's like, well,
yeah, there's a condition.
When are you going to change you? Like, you need to be the one worth being with.
Yeah.
Don't change your spouse. Your spouse, that's something you can't control. All you can do is be an awesome spouse. Yeah. Start there. Be a great dad. Be a great husband. And then see what happens, But if you're not willing to do that, then of course, all bets are off. Good luck.
There's a scripture, and I forget where this is in scripture, but I think when God calls, I believe it's Abraham, man, and he says, walk before me and be blameless, and that always resonates with me, because I think back, it goes in line with what you're saying, like with being blameless, like, hey man, like, you're not flawless, right?
Yeah.
You're a human, you're gonna fail and all that, but be blameless, right? It goes in line with your idea of the relationships and being a good steward of your relationships. It goes in line with doing that for your wife as well, and being, if you're putting these conditions on her that, like, if this then that, right?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to saying, like, hey, I'm going to be this man, this type of man, and embody these types of principles and character traits and all that, whether you want me or not. I'm just going to do that because that's the type of man I'm going to be. I'm going to be blameless. I want to live up to that reputation. Yeah. And in doing so, she's going to respond. Like you just said, you guys responded, and she'll have a response to that. And it could be positive, it could be negative.
Yeah.
Right. And in your case, it was positive. She responded to those changes. She saw that. She went through her own healing process, man. She came back and God did his thing in that situation. Dude, that's a beautiful story, man. That's awesome. To show the power of that and the power of commitment, man, for you to stick it out, because, like you said, the divorced friends and all that, many of them, some situation like that comes out. And I'm not saying this is true for all of our friends or all the guys, right? But saying some guys are they're like, okay, cool. Like, I'm out, I'm wash my hands of this. Like, she doesn't want me. I'm out, as opposed to staying it. Well, I'm not done. I'm not done. I'm going to stay. I made a commitment when we made those vows to one another.
It was a covenant. Yeah.
It's dude. So it's a covenant. It's deeper than a contract,
Yeah.
It's a covenant. So,
way deeper.
Yeah. Dude, I love that, man. So,
and you have to honor it like as such, it's not about what you feel. It's about the action. Love is a verb. Like love, like if you committed to love somebody, you need to love them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's an action. Like, you can't stop loving them. Like, you promise to love them. You promise to their dad, their mom, whatever, like their family. Like, you made a promise, like, to your point of like being blameless, like do your part to be the blessing, and then, if the other side doesn't reciprocate, that's one thing, but you do your part. You commit, honor it, and then, then again, it's you. All you can do is control what you can control, and that's you being an awesome husband and you being an awesome dad or whatever, being an awesome employee, an awesome whatever you're stewarding, steward it well.
We're up on time, bro. I literally could geek out with you like another hour for like hip hop stuff and all that. So, but I know you got stuff to do. I want to be respectful of your time. I want to hit you with the very last question I always hit my guests with, man, is in your humble opinion, man, from your experience in life, if you had to narrow it down to a few key traits, what makes a dad a great family leader?
I mean, to me, like patience and compassion and empathy and understanding, like kind of all lumped together, like wanting the best for your family, always thinking the best of them, like give your family the benefit of the doubt. Like when your kids get in trouble and they're telling you something, like believe them, because if they're lying, they're gonna feel it when they're like, oh, I told him a lie and he believed it. Like he's trusting me to be honest. I can't keep doing that to him. Like when you give your family the benefit of the doubt and you extend trust, I guess that's the word, like extend trust to them. Like, people always like to say, well, trust has to be earned. It's like, no. You got to extend it first. Like you extend it. And then if they squander it and they don't steward that trust you extended, then you have a right not to trust them. But if you don't know them or you don't have any reason not to trust them, you got to extend trust and show them that you care enough to trust them. But I think that's a big thing is, and meeting your family where they are, like wherever they're at, mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever, trying to find a way to meet them there. And honestly, I say that's an area I struggle with. Not because I don't desire to be compassionate or empathetic about certain situations, but I feel like because I'm so experienced in age or whatever, like I feel like my hope and faith is unshakable. And so in every situation, I'm like, the glass is half full. And here's why. Here's the silver lining. Here's and sometimes my family's like, can't you just meet us where we're at, like, and let us grieve a little bit first, and just understand why we feel the way we feel before you start, painting the rosy future outlook. And so that's where I try to find a way to just listen. For me, that's shut up and listen. Let them get it all out. Let them vent. Let them speak before you start throwing your Garyisms, right? Just let them speak. Let them get it out. Let them work through their emotions, and then let them know you're there. You're there for them when they want to talk more, or when they want an answer. Like, well, what do I do now? When they want advice or guidance or whatever. But don't be so quick to just, well, here's what I would do. When I had this situation in the past, here's what I remember all these times where they're like, I didn't ask you what you did. I didn't ask you what, I'm telling you what I'm going through. Like, let me fit it. Let me have my moment first. Then, tomorrow I'll ask you about now that I've slept on it and I feel better, like here's where we're at. What do we do? Okay, cool. Well, here's what I would do. And then you go from there. So, because I refuse personally to spend 1 minute outside of a space of hope. Knowing who my creator is and knowing that he controls everything and that he's got my back and he's looking out and he's already gone before me in every situation. Like, I just don't personally waste any time thinking, oh, this sucks. Woe's me, crap. I mean, like immediately, even if, for example, like when I got laid off, like for about 3 seconds, when I walked into the office and my boss was like, and I saw the lady that, that does layoffs in the office. Because I know that because we had done rounds of layoffs before where I had to lay off people and she was the person that helped me lay them off. So I know what she does. Like when you see her in a room, it's like, you're about to get fired.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, as my boss is telling me, your position's been eliminated, whatever, and then literally like a minute later, she's like, but you've been here 18 years, so your severance is, and when she said the number, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
That's God taking care of me. I've been here a long time. I got a really big severance. I don't have to work for a year if I don't like, so I'm like, immediately, I'm like, that's God. I'm not going to wallow in this. This is God's doing something. This is a huge blessing in disguise. Well, I don't know where the blessing is other than he's showing me I got you even with a layoff. Like I've already laid aside provision for you.
Yeah.
So don't you stress. Don't you worry about it. Just like I always do. I got you. And I want you to acknowledge me, praise me, show your family that I got you, remind them, and then go steward a whole bunch of new relationships until I land you somewhere, and that's what he did.
I love
So
that, man.
I don't know if I answered your question, but I feel like empathy, compassion, understanding, meeting them, meeting them where they're at.
Meeting them where they're at, man. Like that's a big one. You described one of the biggest dad struggles, right? Is just kind of because as fathers, as protectors, as providers, like we're especially when we've been through some stuff, like we've lived some life, right? Like we want to do everything in our power to help them avoid those pitfalls, because sometimes we'll see pitfalls before they land in them. So of course we want to help them avoid them.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we have to have to rein it in, like you said, right? Because we want to we want to go quick to like, yeah, all right, well, son, look, take a look. Let me give you some game right now on what you need to do, right? And
let me give you the pro tips.
Exactly. But we need to take a step back and understand that even when we were at that age, like we weren't quick to want to hear it, So just the mere fact that you have that relationship, the open door for them to trust you with those problems, and at least for you to just be a sounding board for them, right? Initially.
Yeah.
Dude, that's a big takeaway there. You're like, my kids are still young, but I'm taking notes. You know what I mean? Like, because they're gonna grow up, and my son already, like, he's at 6. He's already asking these very crazy, like, unique questions and all that, and I'm trying to figure out how do I answer that to a 6-year-old, right? And how do I prep myself for those conversations as he enters, the teenage years, and what are those conversations going to look like, and how do I rein it in, like you were describing, to be empathetic to his situation, to understand that he's living his own world. He's forging himself, or God's forging him into the man that he's going to be.
Yeah.
And I just have to be there. I got to be that lighthouse. I got to be, the person that he can rely on no matter what, and not be that judgmental critiquer that's always on him. Because then I'll sever the relationship up if I do that. You know what I mean? So that's big. It's big. Yeah, dude, you definitely answered the question, bro. That's huge family leadership stuff right there.
Yeah. And plus they say if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it enough yourself. So
there it is. There it is, bro. There it is.
Bro. But I'm learning too. I'm learning real quick. I'm learning that, like, as parents, we want to keep our kids from falling off their bicycle and having accidents and skinning their knee and all this stuff, and twisting their ankle. Like, we know all the things that we're like, oh, if you don't do that, you won't fall. If you don't play around in the kitchen when the oven is on, you won't burn yourself, like all these things. And they're going to do those things. They're going to hurt themselves. And part of growing and learning is allowing them the opportunity to make mistakes and creating an environment where they know that it's okay to mess up. You give them guidance, right? But if you don't give them enough space for them to learn how to think for themselves, then you're setting them up for failure. So you have to, like, give them wisdom and then let them do stuff. And and watch them. I mean, even though you're watching it, you're just like, "Ooh, he's about to, you know," and you're like, but you gotta, and then you just be there when they fall, pick them up, dust off the knee, show them, okay, you fell because you were leaning to the left. You just need to straighten up on the bicycle. You'll be fine. Try it again, you know, and then just encourage them to keep going, because that's where we can really fail as parents, is if we coddle them too much, or we shield them from danger, right? And then we tell them, you know, when they fall down, it's okay, you know, just go get in the bed. It's okay. You can sleep this off, or, you know, it's okay. You could just, you know, let me get you some cookies and, you know, we'll make it better. Like, you got to tell them, they need to see you fall and get up, and they need to see you teaching them how to get up, dust yourself off. All right, try it again.
Yeah.
You fell doing something that you want to do.
Yep.
You want to learn that. You wouldn't be doing it if you didn't. So try it again. You know, Tony Hawk didn't become Tony Hawk by not falling, you know, whatever. Like, if you want to be that, yeah, there's going to be some stuff that comes with that, you know, but whatever it is you're trying to do, you know, there's going to be learning curves and, you know, pain points and all the things, but you still got to work through that, you know, and once you do, same thing with creativity. You know, if you want to be a painter, you want to be a rapper, you want to be a singer, like, there's some parts of it that suck. And as you're trying to figure out your thing, but you got to work through those. And then once you work through it, it's like, now everything comes second nature to me, because I've worked through all that stuff, you know, all those, you know, kind of trials and stuff. Right. So I fall down 10 times, but you got to get up 10 times, right? You can't fall 10 times, get up 9. Then you're going to be on the ground. You're going to stay on the ground. No, you got to get up. Every single time you fall, you got to get up. Should be the same number of falls and stands. Those numbers, I don't care if it's 100. It should be 100 falls, 100 stands.
Yep.
You got to get back up.
That's it, man. You know, the one thing that to be said there about, you know, the leading by example front, right? With respect to creativity, and this is something I'm learning right now with my own kids, is that going back to the whole parable of the talents, like, one thing that I feel like you've done effectively, because you haven't given up your creative outlet, and you've shown your kids throughout this entire journey that you've been on, that you don't give up on your dream. You know, that that you can have the dream and still be a present father, and still be a devoted husband, and still be a man of God. Like, you can have you can have this multifaceted life, right? And not have to give up the dream and the hope and the drive that you have. And I think that's awesome, bro, because you know, so many men get to a point that have explored creative outlets like we have. And they do what I did, where they put it to the side when they become the family man, and they never pick it up again. And then their kids never get to see that beautiful side of them, right? Like, they never get exposure to that. And I'm seeing that now with my kids, and I'm like, man, how could I have deprived them of this part of my life, right? And full circle, man. December last year, December, I had a show. We went up to the Apogee, that brotherhood that me and Derek are a part of. We went up. We had a reunion, and I asked one of the heads at the organization, Matt, and he and I are pretty good friends. And I asked him if I could do 2 songs, right? So I performed 2 songs at the event. And my kids went up there with me, bro. Like, you know, I had all 3, even the baby was up there, and it was like rocking with the, you know, I even like passed the mic to my 6-year-old, and he like rapped however he could rap, right? Like, the like a little part of the hook and the song. Like, it was so cool, bro. It was full circle moment that would have never happened had I not went back in and dug up that talent and said, hey, man, I'm going to go figure out, God gave me a gift. I'm going to go use it to bless people. You know, and I just can't sit in it. Yeah. So, dude, creativity, fellas, you listening to this right now, man, do not lose out on it. You have something in you. Use it. It's been given to you for a reason. So,
and your job as a husband and a father is to make sure your family knows how important that creative outlet is to you. and how it makes you a better person. Like if they don't know, if they're just gonna think it's some hobby like playing video games or something, like oh, he's just wasting time because he's trying to be distant from us or get away from us because he's overwhelmed with being a husband. Or no, like this is helping me be like this is a creative outlet that God gave me before I met you. It's important to me. Here's why. So like my wife understands it. Like she gives me space. Nice. She knows how this thing works. Like she knows when I'm vibing on music, I might listen to the same song over 100 times. And she's just like, you're in the bathroom brushing your teeth and you've listened to that song 12 times. But I'm not going to say anything because I know this is part of the process. I know what he's doing. He's analyzing and evaluating and thinking of ideas or whatever. She gives me that space. She don't say nothing. She, smiles and walks past. And like, it's just like, she gets it. And she always knows, like if I tell her, okay, I'm going to be at the studio for, all day, mixing or whatever. And she's just like, okay, have fun. Like I get, like, we'll be here. Let me know when you're expected to be back, and I'll have dinner ready, or we can decide what we want to do later, or, we can do something with kids, whatever. But I know you need that time. And, she's told me that a bunch of times, especially since we got remarried. She's like, I know how important that time is for you. So like, I try not to interrupt you or when you're playing your saxophone or whatever. Like she knows, and that's a blessing, right? Because if she didn't know, if she would just think, gosh, he's avoiding me for some reason. He likes to spend hours and hours doing this other thing instead of being with me. And I think a lot of husbands have that problem where they're just like, their wife thinks that music or their creative outlet is competition for them. It's not competition. This isn't competition. Like we're not, you may feel like you're competing for my time, but no, we there's a balance. There's a place for everybody in this, but this has to happen too.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So but then guys, make time for your wife, make time for your kids. Don't be gone. And then it's time to go to bed. Everybody's it's like make time, like be intentional. Take your daughters out on dates. Take your sons out to do stuff. Take your wives out on dates. Like something we all like after you've been married a long time, we all forget that not only it's cool to do the group family thing, but your kids need you separately too. Like you got 3 kids, like. They want singular daddy time, like 6-year-old, you and him go watch a baseball game. And then the other one, like you go and get ice cream. Or like you got to do these separate things so that they each feel, specific, intentional love. Yeah. Like they know that they are important to you. Yeah. And that relationship that special thing you have between you and them is critically important enough for you to spend alone time with them.
Yeah. That's awesome, brother. Bro, dude, super like grateful, blessed, and honored, man. Like this is awesome. We definitely got to do a part 2 at some point, bro. In the future, man. I'd love to
absolutely.
Do that. Yeah,
100%.
Thanks for checking out my interview with Sivion. I've gone ahead and linked up all of his contact info and music in the show notes below. Please go give him a follow and show him some love and support. If you got value from this episode, all I ask is that you share it with a fellow dad.
1, 2, 3 actions I didn't meet. 4, 5, 6 fear and silence begin to mix. 7, 8, 9 the thought of being emotionless started taking over my mind.